Welcome to the Fountains Studio Celebration. As some of you know, in addition to overseeing the Desert Southwest Conference of the United Methodist Church, our Bishop Carlo Rappanute has recently been assigned responsibility for the New Mexico Conference as well. This is a new alignment across jurisdictional lines and comes with expanded duties and new expectations. For details on how this will play out in the coming days, Bishop Carlo has provided a brief explainer video. You'll find a link to that video in this week's eStreams newsletter and in the description below. Also in this week's eStreams, you'll find a link to our Sign Up Genius app. We're scheduling into the fall and would love to have you be a part of the rotation of studio readers. Just click on the Sign Up Genius app and you'll find a list of dates on which we still need readers. When your week comes up, you'll get an email with the script and an email from me to coordinate a Zoom call so we can record the Get in the Spirit, Words of Wisdom, and the rest of the liturgy. If you haven't done it before, it's simple and fun and a great way for you to be a part of getting the Fountain's message of putting love first out there in the world. So, sign up. You'll find a link to Sign Up Genius in eStreams and in the description for this video. In the meantime, welcome to our studio celebration. We're glad you're here.
Join us as we get in the Spirit. Let there be joy in our coming together.
Let there be truth heard in the words we speak and the songs we sing.
Let there be help and healing for our disharmony and despair.
Let there be silence through which the voice within us and beyond us may be heard.
Let there be joy in our coming together.
And may we be nurtured by the presence of the Spirit.
Church where love lives is a safe place for all, where we gather in wonder to remember God's call, to embody God's vision of kindness and care. With each song that we offer, with each protest and prayer, on this sacred foundation of faith and of trust, we are building a world that is gentle and just. We rejoice and repent, offer praise and forgive, and we welcome all people to the church where love lives. The church where love lives draws the stranger inside, making neighbors strangers, not a neighbor denied. Till this heaven on earth and God's will has been done, till the whole of creation is restored to its home. On this sacred foundation of faith and of trust, we are building a world that is gentle and just. We rejoice and repent, offer praise and forgive, and we welcome all people to the church where love lives.
Let's affirm the Fountain's mission together.
As followers of Jesus,
We put love first.
as we breathe deep and enter into this time of quiet, consider these words from English pastor and progressive Christian Anna Gobeldale. God entrusts us to a great treasure, the gift of enough. When I was young, I wanted more, persistent, insistent, unquenched desire. I expended energy, precious time, accumulating earthly things. But then God granted me the treasure of enough, not wanting more, satisfied, contentment, not needing to eat too much food, buy too many shoes, accumulate too many gold stars. All things in moderation, the treasure of enough.
Where love and caring are, there is God. Where love and caring are, there is God. Where love and caring are, there is God. Where love and caring are, there is
On this Labor Day weekend, we pause in gratitude and concern for workers throughout the world. We remember all who strive to better themselves and their world through their labor, men and women, young and old, of all races, and not just in our country, but from all over the world. In the name of the one who knew the joy and burden of labor, Carpenter from Nazareth, we offer our prayers. For workers who face dangerous conditions or hazards in their work without sufficient warning or protection.
We lift up our prayers.
For workers that the pandemic revealed as essential and who continue to work despite danger to both them and their families.
We lift up our prayers.
For workers whose vocation as first responders, medical professionals, and teachers demand untold additional hours and personal risk.
We lift up our prayers.
For those who face the conflicts of working and caring for children without adequate support.
We lift up our prayers.
For workers who cannot find work and for whom unemployment assistance is not available.
We lift up our prayers.
For workers who are displaced or laid off by technical changes, global pressures, and forces beyond their control.
We lift up our prayers.
For children whose childhood has been cut short because they are forced to work.
We lift up our prayers.
For the children, men, and women who are trafficked and enslaved by those who abuse their bodies for profit.
We lift up our prayers.
For all who are discriminated against in getting work or in their place of work because of race, gender, ethnic group, physical disabilities, political or religious beliefs, or sexual orientation or gender identity.
We lift up our prayers.
For all workers who have been affected by labor disputes or who have been discriminated against because they sought justice in their place of employment.
We lift up our prayers.
And for all workers whose work is taken for granted, is unappreciated, or lacks meaning.
We lift up our prayers.
May we grow in our awareness of often overlooked laborers who make the lives we live possible and be mindful of their right to dignity wherever they are employed. This is our prayer.
We offer this time of quiet, bringing our whole selves in the name of the one who taught his first followers to pray the prayer we now sing together.
Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from all evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever.
Hi, this is Azra Hussein. I'm the director of the Islamic Speakers Bureau of Arizona. I want to talk to you about our 9/11 multi-faith food drive. At the 11th anniversary of 9/11, we at ISBA, in an effort to change the 9/11 commemoration narrative from one of sadness to one of service, we chose to partner up with churches and mosques and synagogues to conduct a multi-faith food drive together. And this event demonstrates the same spirit that drove the first responders to care for complete strangers. We're hoping that as strangers, we're showing that same spirit by helping complete strangers.
Hi, I'm Dee Dee Rudolphi, and I'm coordinating the 9/11 food drive. We have supported this effort over the last 13 years. So you can bring non-perishable food plus hygiene items to the church on Sunday mornings on September 8th and September 15th. On the 15th, the Extended Hands Food Bank truck will be in our parking lot, and we invite people from the community as well as other churches to join us in that effort to load the food onto the food truck. Other food from other mosques and churches and synagogues will also go to the ICNA Relief Fund in Phoenix. So lots of people will benefit from your sharing the food at this time. You can also give online. Just go to the 911fooddrive.org and you can push the donate button right there. And also it will give you a list of the supplies that we're looking for. We hope that you will be generous in this effort and help us in this endeavor.
Thank you to all of the folks over at the Fountains United Methodist Church for partnering with us all these years and encouraging their community and beyond to work towards making our community a better place.
Every day, the Fountain strives to put love first, both in person and online.
And if you're one of our many regular online viewers, we're grateful for your participation as a digital member.
Every week you hear about all the many ways you can give electronically to support this online outreach, like using the QR code on the screen, going to give.weputlovefirst.org, or downloading the Vanco mobile app. Then, when you're on our secure giving site, be sure to look for the line that says Studio Celebration Donation.
A contribution here lets us know you're out there, that the studio is important to you, and that you want to be a part of supporting this growing digital outreach.
So wherever and whenever you're watching, we're glad you're joining us.
Thanks in advance for supporting the studio financially.
Now the table is spread and all has been prepared. There is room for all who would come and recall the meals you shared. Now we pass round the bread and we sharing the wine, whether first or last, whether most or least, all may come sharing the feast. All may come sharing the feast. Help us embody your love and welcome all we meet. May this bread bring us to new life. May this wine make our bitterness sweet. Now we pass round the bread and we sharing the wine, whether first or last, whether most or least, all may come sharing the feast. All may come sharing the feast. God, make us vessels of joy that spread your true unity. Help us share your peace in the world till we're one cosmic family. Now we pass round the bread and we sharing the wine, whether first or last, whether most or least, all may come sharing the feast. All may come sharing the feast. All may sharing the feast. Give thanks with a grateful heart. Give thanks to the Holy One. Give thanks because God's given Jesus Christ. because of what the Lord has done for us. Give thanks with a grateful heart. Give thanks to the Holy One. Give thanks because God's given Jesus Christ, the Son. Give thanks.
Our reading today tells the story of an event that traditionally takes place on the northern shore of the Sea of Galilee. It's a beautiful setting of rolling hills, and today at a place called Tabgha is the site of a beautiful Byzantine-style church with a famous mosaic of loaves and 2 fishes in the floor. One of the surprising elements for many pilgrims to the site today is that instead of the rolling fields of grain Jesus would have likely seen, climate change has altered the surrounding environment enough that visitors are now surrounded by rolling fields of bananas. I like to imagine how different the story might have been if Jesus were here today. Instead of loaves and fishes, maybe the story would have had Jesus saying, "Take, peel, and eat." Never mind. Regardless, this story is often referred to as the feeding of the 5,000 and was so important to the early church that it's the only miracle story, other than the resurrection, that appears in all 4 Gospels. There are some variations in the telling. In Luke's version, Jesus taps a boy as the source of the loaves and fish. But basically, Jesus has been teaching a crowd all day and then uses the basic need for sustenance as an object lesson for the disciples. We'll hear Mark's version today, where Jesus has the tired and grumpy disciples collect food and, much to their surprise, feed the whole crowd with plenty left over.
Our words of wisdom are from Mark chapter 6, verses 32 through 44.
And they went away in the boat to a deserted place by themselves. Now many saw them going and recognized them, and they hurried there on foot from all the towns and arrived ahead of them. As Jesus went ashore, he saw a great crowd, and he had compassion for them, because they were like sheep without a shepherd. And he began to teach them many things. When it grew late, his disciples came to him and said,
"This is a deserted place, and the hour is now very late. Send them away so that they may go into the surrounding country and villages and buy something for themselves to eat."
But he answered them, "You give them something to eat."
They said to him, "Are we to go and buy 200 denarii worth of bread and give it to them to eat?"
And he said to them, "How many loaves have you? Go and see."
When they had found out, they said, 5 and 2 fish.
Then he ordered them to get all the people to sit down in groups on the green grass. So they sat down in groups of hundreds and of 50s. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, he looked up to heaven and blessed and broke the loaves. And he gave them to his disciples to set before the people. And he divided the 2 fish among them all.
And all ate and were filled, and they took up 12 baskets full of broken pieces and of the fish. Those who had eaten the loaves numbered 5,000 men.
Hear what the Spirit is saying to the church.
Thanks be to God.
Our story today about the multiplication of the loaves and fishes is most often portrayed as a supernatural miracle. But if Jesus were to try and pull this off today, I think even he would have had a hard time. Have you ever noticed how fishy the Gospels are? Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John are all filled with fish stories. Jesus calling fisher folk, disciples hailing from fishing villages like Magdala and Bethsaida, stories told about great catches, the emphasis on fish is not a coincidence. Because in Jesus' day, in Galilee, it was all about fish. And what most folks don't understand is that in the first century, the Sea of Galilee was undergoing a huge economic and political change. During Jesus' life, Herod Antipas was tetrarch or governor of Galilee. But decades before, in order to curry favor with Caesar Augustus, Antipas' father, Herod the Great, had built Caesarea Maritima, an impressive harbor and city that he named for the emperor. Well, Antipas wanted to do some impressing of his own, so he moved his capital to a city on the Lake of Galilee and named his new capital after the current emperor, Tiberius. But moving the capital was for economic reasons too. The Romans were addicted to a sauce made out of fermented fish guts called garum. Now, don't turn up your nose. You use garum's great-great-grand sauce, Worcestershire sauce, all the time. The industry was booming, and Antipas was busy commercializing the lake, essentially monopolizing its fish, dried, salted, and sauced for export, and thereby increasing revenue, tax, and tribute. Along with Antipas' relocation and renaming of the capital came a level of commercialization that drastically changed the economic situation for all those who had used the lake freely as communal property before the 20s of the Common Era. But wait, insisted the occupied Jewish natives. The Psalms say that the earth is the Lord's and all that's in it. So the lake and all its fish are still ours to share, right? Wrong, said Antipas. To make sure everyone was clear on exactly who the lake and its resources belonged to, Antipas even changed its name from Sea of Galilee to the Sea of Tiberias. So, for Jesus, the economics of the lake served as an object lesson. People were scared. They'd taken for granted that the lake and its resources would always be there. But now, everything was being taken over by Rome and the Jewish elites. People were beginning to question whether they could depend on the abundance of God and started to hoard what little they had. Who knew where their next meal might come from? Folks started to look at their neighbors with suspicion as competition for resources that everyone felt were dwindling before their very eyes. Every person for themselves! And that's the dynamic Jesus was fighting against in today's passage. It's the end of a long day, and not only is everybody hungry, the new economics of the lake has conditioned them to be suspicious of one another. And in a pre-convenience store or fast food culture, the disciples are rightfully a little anxious and want to send the people away to find themselves food before there's a crisis. But Jesus tells them, how about you give them something to eat? Reluctantly, the disciples gather what food that they could find, and understandably, it's not much, just 5 loaves and 2 fish. Nevertheless, Jesus made a big deal out of it. He took it, blessed it, broke it, and gave it to the disciples to distribute. In other words, Jesus demonstrated a willingness to share everything they had, with the conviction that if everyone else did the same, there'd be enough for everyone. Notice what didn't happen. Remember the miracle in the story of the Exodus? Jesus didn't ask God to rain manna from heaven. He didn't have to. Jesus knew there was already enough for everyone if they shared. So Jesus asked his followers to lead by example. People were not stupid. In a time when food was not readily available on every corner like it is today, people always carried food with them. They wouldn't wander out into a deserted place to listen to some preacher without having brought food. But human nature being what it is, people were cautious. And looking around at their neighbors, they were also suspicious. I'm sure Wanda McGillicuddy didn't bring food. I'm not getting out my food where Wanda can see it, or else she'll want some. But imagine, once the disciples started sharing what they had, people began to follow suit. Even Wanda got out the bread that she had brought. Generosity begets generosity. God's providing for all is in the sharing. Mark's parable says there is more than enough food when it passes through the hands of divine justice, when it is taken, blessed, broken, and given out, when food is seen as God's consecrated gift. Do you recognize those four verbs? Took, blessed, broke, and gave. We say them every time we share communion, where Jesus took the bread, blessed it, broke it, and gave it to his followers. Took, blessed, broke, and gave. Those four actions. We see those same words again in Luke's walk to Emmaus story, remember? After the crucifixion, two dejected disciples were walking home to Emmaus when a mysterious traveler joins them on the road, but their eyes were kept from recognizing him as Jesus. They tell him about Jesus and their disappointment over how things had played out. In response, Jesus lays out a whole Bible study lesson about himself, but they still don't recognize him. But what happens next is the climax of the story. As they get close to Emmaus, Jesus makes like he's going to go on, but they insist that he stay with them and share in a meal. When the stranger was at the table with them, he took bread, blessed, broke it, and gave it to them. And only then were their eyes opened. And when they recognized him, he vanished. Crossan says that this parable tells us a lot about earliest Christianity's practices. First comes the reading of the scriptures, which is important, but not enough. To really reveal the presence of Christ in their midst takes the sharing of their resources with a random stranger. Only then, in the sharing, can you announce that Christ had been made known in the breaking of the bread. And the verb break emphasizes that this is a sharing of communal food rather than the hoarding of one's personal supply. Our success, our potential, our effectiveness, not only as a community of Jesus followers, but as a broader civic community, is directly related to our ability to share our resources. Just consider the recent furor from some corners, including a lot of Christians, when the word got out that the state of Minnesota had made free breakfasts and lunches available to all public school students, resulting in some cases in both increased attendance and improved test scores. What? Some have howled. Is this communism? How dare you use our collective resources to help improve conditions for everyone? Methinks they have missed the point of Jesus' message. Insofar as we hoard what we have, out of fear or insecurity or a sense of privilege, we cripple our capacity for shaping the whole world in the image of God's vision, this kingdom that Jesus spent his whole ministry trying to get us to understand. Look, it's no wonder that in the Lord's Prayer, the very first petition is, "Give us our daily bread," because the resource of bread and its subsequent sharing is the primary means through which we make Jesus real in the world. And we won't get the point of the Lord's Prayer until we realize that the appeal for daily bread is not, "Give me this day my daily bread," but "Give us this day our daily bread." We're in this together, and life's resources are meant to be shared. Plus, we do well to remember, as Woodrow Wilson once said, "No one can worship God or love their neighbor on an empty stomach." Once upon a time, a very prim and proper lady decided to top off her shopping spree at some of the finer stores of London with a proper cup of tea. Intending to also enjoy some gourmet cookies that she'd brought in her purse, she proceeded to sit down at a table for two and ordered a pot of tea. Because it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the shop was crowded, and a man came in and sat in the other chair at her table. While it's not essential to the story, it might be helpful to know that the woman's assumptions may have been influenced by the fact that this man happened to be Jamaican. The woman proceeded to take out her paper, read, and leisurely sip her tea. She then took one of the cookies and began to eat it. Much to her surprise, the man, who had also ordered a pot of tea, also took a cookie and began to eat it. She was mildly irritated, but she didn't say anything. She just turned back to the paper she was reading. She then took a second cookie, and shocking, he reached over and took a cookie. She glared at him over her paper and was truly indignant. While she was glaring at him, he smiled, took the fifth and last cookie, and breaking it in two, offered her half. She was livid. She refused the cookie, got up and stormed out, plopping down cash at the register as she went home in a huff. At the front door of her house, she fumbled in her purse for her key. Oh my Lord, she thought. In her purse was her package of cookies, unopened. It dawned on her that all along she was eating the man's cookies, and she was the one who was indignant. In reality, he was sharing with her what he had brought to the table. I wonder, how often do we let our assumptions, prejudices, and conditioning make us like that woman? Psalm 24 says, "The earth is the Lord's and all that's in it." I don't think we really get what Jesus was on about until we realize what Jesus was trying to tell us, that food is meant for sharing. Everything we have in life is a gift. We don't have bread or get bread because we deserve it. We have bread and get bread because we have been unbelievably blessed. As we share the gifts of God's creation in a way that assures that everyone gets enough, especially those who are in need, the closer we get to living into this kingdom of God that Jesus has called us part of. The problem is not, nor has it ever been, a matter of the supply of life's essentials. It's the distribution. In the end, the Lord's Prayer is not just about us receiving our daily bread, but that all are able to be filled, that all simply have enough. Be well. Don't forget, if you liked what you heard today, buy me a coffee. The link's in the description.
For everyone born, a place at the table. For everyone born, clean water and bread. A shelter, a space, a safe place for growing. For everyone born, a star overhead. And God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. Yes, God will delight when we are creators of justice, justice and joy. For woman and man, a place at the table, revising the roles, deciding the share, with wisdom and grace, dividing the power. For woman and man, a system that's fair. And God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. Yes, God will delight when we are creators of justice, justice and joy. For young and for old, a place at the table, a voice to be heard, a part in the song. The hands of a child in hands that are wrinkled. For young and for old, the right to belong. And God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. Yes, God will delight when we are creators of justice, justice and joy. For just and unjust, a place at the table, abuser abused with need to forgive. In anger, in hurt, a mindset of mercy. For just and unjust, a new way to live. And God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. Yes, God will delight when we are creators of justice, justice and joy. For everyone born, a place at the table, to live without fear and simply to be, to work, to speak out, to witness and worship, for everyone born the right to be free. And God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. Yes, God will delight when we are creators of justice, justice and joy. For gay and for straight, a place at the table, a covenant shared, a welcoming space, a rainbow of race and gender and color, for gay and for straight, the chalice of grace. And God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. Yes, God will delight when we are creators of justice, justice and joy, justice and joy, justice and joy.
Let us offer these words of challenge and blessing to one another as we go. Let us embrace the wonder of this week, expectation and imagination.
With faith to face our challenges.
With love that casts out fear.
With hope to trust tomorrow.
We accept this day as the gift it is.
A reason for rejoicing.
May we go in courage and grace.